Okay, um, 15 minutes after 6, I think we will get started. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Wilson, City Manager of the City of West Hollywood. Welcome to the inaugural State of the Community meeting. Hopefully this will be our last virtual meeting and State of the Community meeting, and we will be back in person for the first time next year. The State of the Community is intended to give our community members an update on some of the major initiatives, programs, and work plan items from the city staff perspective. But more importantly, it's an opportunity to listen to issues and concerns from you all, the community, and answer any questions you may have. It's a little different from other public meetings where we provide an agenda of topics or a single topic and you comment on that topic. Here you can talk about any city-related issues and hopefully provide some positive feedback. That's always welcome. Before we get into the program, we have several important elected officials that would like to say a few words. So please welcome Mayor Lauren Meister, Mayor Pro Tem Seppi Shine, and council members John D'Amico, John Erickson, and Lindsay Horvath. Mayor Meister.
Thank you, David, and good evening. On behalf of the City of West Hollywood, I'd like to welcome you to the first annual State of the Community event.
I believe you're muted.
Oh.
I can't hear you.
No, I'm not muted.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
I can hear the mayor.
I can hear you.
Yay. Again, so on behalf of the city, I'd like to welcome everyone to the first annual State of the Community event. Tonight is about our home, the City of West Hollywood. I want to thank the public for making the time to attend tonight, and I want to thank the city manager and staff for putting together this informative and I'm sure exciting and enlightening program. Now I'll pass the mic to my colleague, Mayor Pro Tem Seppi Shine.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to welcome everybody to the State of the Community. I look forward to hearing from staff and the public and getting positive feedback about exciting things that we're working on. And I look forward to many more years of the State of the Community that is open to the public and will provide more engagement with you all. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to Council Member John D'Amico.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Shine. This is, of course, a very exciting event, and I think very much in line with our city and where it seems we're headed. And, you know, I've been here for just over 10 years, and what's most exciting, I think, about the pivot that our city is taking is we are becoming a truly sustainable place. We are interested in sustainable buildings. We are interested in our environment. We are interested in our ecology. We're interested in our businesses. And of course, most of all, we are interested in our people and our residents and our workers and our visitors, and making sure that we can sustain a level of existence in our city that is important and can be counted on for generations to come. Just as our colleagues in the previous 35, 37 years thought about and worked towards making this place a place that would succeed, we are now thinking about and working towards making a place that is West Hollywood sustainable. So to my colleagues, I say thank you. To the staff, I say keep up the amazing good work, and we look forward to more of that from you. And to the residents, I say join us in making West Hollywood a sustainable and safe and healthy community. Thank you all. And now, John Erickson, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Councilmember D'Amico. I am in a car because I'm in Wisconsin, so I appreciate all of you tonight joining in via Zoom. I'm very lucky that this is via Zoom, so I can be here with all of you, because truly you are all the most important part of our community. You all are what makes the city go round, all of our policies, our programs. I love seeing all of your faces now more and more out there in the streets, at businesses, out there in the community. You are the best part. I really want to thank our city staff for putting on this event. And truly, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight, giving us another Zoom on another night. But ultimately, thank you so much. And, you know, because of all of you, we're able to really push this city forward in a progressive way. And it's so great. It was great being up there with my colleagues on Monday, and looking forward to many more council meetings to come where we continue to put the city first and forward. And now I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Lindsay Horvath.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Erickson. And I want to thank our city manager, as well as all our city staff who are participating tonight and who made this evening possible. As you can see, I'm wearing Dodgers gear. Let's hope they pull out a W tonight. I just want to thank all of you who are participating in this community conversation. As Councilmember Erickson said, you are the best part of our city, and we are a more vibrant city when more and different voices are at the table. And so we thank you for your participation and your engagement. And I want to personally thank you for the opportunity to serve as your council member here in West Hollywood. It's an honor to be able to be of service to a community like West Hollywood that has prioritized sustainability, that has prioritized social services, that is committed to community safety, that has consistently delivered new housing opportunities and protected housing through our rent stabilization ordinance, that has opened up businesses and gotten people back to work, has protected businesses through a very difficult time. And I know it takes many community partners to make that happen. And I see some of them on our Zoom here tonight. So to everyone who is a key stakeholder in our city, to everyone who is truly invested in the future growth and support of our community, I thank you for all that you will choose to give to our city. You know, a few highlights that are top of mind: our LA EDC in the county has nominated West Hollywood as one of the top 10 most business-friendly cities in the county. We'll find out if we're the top, I guess, next month. But that is a team effort led by our extraordinary staff inside City Hall, with the participation of leaders in our business community, with the participation of community members who know just how important the businesses are to our, not only to what the experience of our community is, because we know we love to celebrate West Hollywood, but also because it helps to invest in those services that provide the care and support that people have come to rely on. We have invested in social services during this very difficult time of crisis. And those services have delivered in extraordinary ways. We also recently found out that the Crenshaw Northern extension of the Metro line that we are expecting to come to West Hollywood we received funding through the COG to fund the studies to keep it moving forward. And it has been named as one of the top 100 projects in North America, infrastructure projects in North America, top 2 in terms of transportation. It's number 2 in all of North America, according to CGLA. And we are just so thrilled to have award-winning staff, award-winning leadership, award-winning projects, and something that we'll all get to celebrate very soon. And I know the mayor is eager to cut that ribbon, is the opening of West Hollywood Park. That kind of investment in community is truly what West Hollywood is all about. I can't wait to celebrate that moment with all of you so we can be back in person. We can be the community we know and love in West Hollywood and celebrate that public facility, that public space that will allow us all to gather. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you will continue to do to help West Hollywood grow.
Great, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. Okay, so before we get started, we just have a few housekeeping items. My full screen. Please keep your video and microphone off unless you are speaking. There will be opportunities for everyone to speak later during the discussion periods. There will be breakout rooms available to the Zoom attendees only. It won't be available to those watching on YouTube. The recording of this State of the Community event will be available on youtube.com/WehoTV. And then the breakout rooms will not be streamed live. So we will do a brief presentation from staff, followed by a question and answering period with all the attendees in the main Zoom room. And then we'll go to breakout rooms. And at that time, the YouTube live streaming will be concluded. And I think those are all the reminders. So next slide. So the theme for this year's State of the Community meeting is moving forward together. It may be obvious why this was selected for the theme, as we are all working towards recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Returning to some sense of normalcy is something that everyone in our community has in common. It goes much farther beyond the financial recovery, but it's more of a holistic recovery for many of our community members. And moving forward together as a community gives us all a much better opportunity to get beyond recovery and return to a sense of normality much sooner. For today's presentation, here's a brief overview. I will give a short city manager's update, followed by each of our department heads who will talk about just a few of their major work plan items. And then we'll have the question and answer period for the group as a whole. And these are more general questions. We will then go into breakout groups for each department and division. And in those breakout groups, you can ask more specific questions for each division. And so that's the general overview and plan for the day. Next slide. So it'd be impossible to talk about the state of the community without talking about COVID-19. This slide provides a brief recap of the support that the city provided during the pandemic. On March 18th, 2020, we pivoted from basically a completely in-person city government to a virtual government. Over the next few months, most of our employees learned how to work remotely, while others continue to provide essential in-person services, such as our code enforcement, our building inspectors, and many of our streets and maintaining our streets and roads. We implemented many digital services that were previously only provided in person. And we also provided technology enhancements, such as the touchless signals to keep our community safe. We also provided community support to our most vulnerable populations. We implemented an eviction moratorium. We provided about $1.6 million in rental assistance to our community members. We had meal programs of over $600,000. We also implemented eviction protection and defense at about $180,000. So it was close to $2.5 million in direct support to our community members. We also provided support to our business community. We implemented a commercial eviction moratorium as well. The out zones, we provide the out zones program and spent almost $1 million in providing those out zones. We provided mediation services for our businesses so they could mediate issues with their landlords at about $75,000. And we waived or reduced fees to the amount of about $645,000. And so, as Councilmember Horvath mentioned, because of the work we did with the business community during COVID, we were nominated as a finalist for the LAADC Eddie Award for Most Business-Friendly City. And that award will be given out at the SoFi Stadium on November 10th. And then we've also focused on keeping people safe. And so we've done that we've supported our community members during the height of the pandemic when we've required landlords and businesses to post social distancing requirements in public areas. We are implementing vaccine verification requirements for city staff and contractors that interact with the public, as well as at city facilities and businesses that require mask removal, such as indoor dining, or do not allow for social distancing, like massage parlors. We've also initiated numerous public engagement campaigns, like Cover That Face, Maintain That Space, for masking requirements and emergency messaging on bus shelters and other locations. All the information on the support that the city provided during COVID it can be found in the city's West Hollywood COVID-19 retrospective. This was a document that was approved by the council last winter, and also on the city's coronavirus information webpage. Next slide. So this slide just provides an overview of the city's annual budget position on our current financial position. It looks at where we were over the last 3 years, and these are the 3 years that we're doing the COVID pandemic. Initially, during this period, we have projected about a $35 million deficit. As you can see here, that number has gone down to closer to 17 million, a little less than $20 million. Much of that is due to our conservative budgeting, also with us cutting a lot of expenditures, also due to receiving some money from FEMA and from the American Recovery Act funds. But we still haven't recovered. In addition, we've also gained new revenue sources, such as the new sales tax and some of our billboard development agreements. But here it provides some of the actuals. So for fiscal year 2020, which is when the COVID pandemic hit, about halfway through that year, our revenues were about 1.9 million and our expenditures were about 1.10 million. So we saw a deficit of 1.3 million in that year. These are all general fund dollars. In the next year, in fiscal year 2021, which was basically a full year of the COVID pandemic, revenues were about 90 million and expenditures were close to 100 million at 98.5 million. And so we had a deficit of $8.8 million. And then in the budget that was recently adopted this past June for this fiscal year, going from July 1 of 2021 to June 30th of 2022, we have an approved budget of 1.4 million in revenues and 1.10 million in expenditures. So we're anticipating a 6.9 million, almost $7 million deficit this year. So that's where our overall budget. As we look quarter to quarter in comparison, the first quarter, the July through September of 2019, that would have been pre-COVID, our revenues were about 25.8 million and expenditures at about 32 million. And so looking as we get into the COVID year, so that was a $6 million deficit. So as we look at fiscal year 21, that was July through September of 2020, we had $12 million in revenue. So almost half of the prior year, which was more of a normal year, and about $30 million in expenditures. And that included some of the emergency fund expenditures to support our community. And so we saw a $17 million deficit in that first quarter. As we look at this quarter, that's for fiscal year 2022, our current actuals, our revenues are at about $22 million. So we're getting back closer to where we were in 2019 pre-COVID. But again, that doesn't mean all of our revenues have recovered. We do have new revenue sources that are part of this $22 million. Our expenditures are at about $33 million, so we're still seeing a deficit here of about $10 million. And this just shows the actuals as a percentage of budget. So on the revenue side, we're at about 22% for the first quarter. So that's pretty close to where we expect to be. On the expenditure side, we're at 30%. And that's because a lot of our contracts, we do pay some of those up front, or there's a lot of upfront money, so it evens out more towards the end of the year. So we're pretty close to where we expect to be in the current budget year. Next slide. And so just as we look at some of the things the current status and moving forward, so some of the things that we are doing are reopening city facilities and going back to in-person meetings. We had our first in-person or hybrid council meeting on Monday night. It seemed to go well. In the council chambers were the council members, along with a few staff members and a small portion of the community. We're allowing about 25% of the room's capacity at this time. And if we exceed that, if there are more people who want to come and speak, people can come in for public comment and then go out. We also have reopened city facilities. They're currently open by appointment only. Many of our counter services are seeing a much higher volume or increasing volume of people coming in and making appointments for in-person services. We plan to continue this as long as the county health orders allow facilities to remain open and in-person services. As mentioned earlier, there are the vaccine verification requirements for all city facilities, so people are required to provide proof of vaccination. We will slowly start to have other public meetings or some of our commission meetings. They will most likely start to happen after the start of the calendar year, with some of our larger commission meetings like the Planning Commission, rent stabilization, some of those commissions that meet in the council chambers. We're looking more towards later in next year, maybe spring or summer, before we will be able to have all of our advisory boards and commissions meeting in person again. And a lot of that is due to social distancing requirements. Some of our other meeting rooms are much smaller and don't allow any significant amount of participation in a meeting. Some of the other things we're focusing on is community safety. On November 15th, we will be having a special council meeting. It's during our regular council meeting time, but the focus will be community safety. This is something that we've been discussing for over the last year and almost a half, with some of the protests that happened with the killing of George Floyd and others. And so this is an important meeting. We hope everyone comes out to this meeting and talk about community safety and what it means to you. We do hear from some community members, but it's often everyone can't make it to the meeting. So hopefully for this, we're holding a special meeting to talk about it. In addition to that, we are doing a statistically valid survey of West Hollywood residents. We have hired a firm to do that. They will be reaching directly out to West Hollywood residents via email and telephone and text message to get input for this discussion. Another thing that's been important to the city is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Over the last year, probably year and a half, the city has been really focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and particularly racial equity. We did join GARE, the Government Alliance for Racial Equity. This is a government program that really focuses on racial equity. Their philosophy is to train city staff and its elected officials and board members to be more racially equity sensitive, and then go out and train the community. So we have been doing trainings. We actually had the training for all of our board and commission members, along with the city council and all staff. with Dr. Robin DiAngelo, writer of White Fragility. And it was a really good training and good eye-opener for all of us. We'll continue that work. We also initiated a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee on city staff that's been working very diligently to provide information to all staff. And then some of the other things we're focusing on is economic development. A couple of years ago, we actually eliminated the economic development department and our business development division. That's one of the things we're looking at bringing back. It will be on the agenda for November 1st, the council meeting, to bring back the economic development department and really focus on our communication and work with our business community. That's something that we think is really important and we want to continue to work on. We're also focusing on community services. And this is our community, it's really focusing on our community programs. Some of the work that we do with the neighborhood watch groups, along with some of our co-sponsorships with nonprofits, along with even our major events. It's really looking at how we put together all these community services and events and support for the community, along with our advisory boards. And so that's another thing that we'll be looking at enhancing over the next year, and part of the recommendation in the agenda for November 1st. And then lastly, just a lot of the major capital projects, and a staff will talk about these a little later, so I won't go into any detail, but we are certainly close to finishing West Hollywood Park, the Aquatics and Recreation Center. And so that will be opening soon. Hopefully we'll have a soft opening towards the end of the year and early into next year, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. Another major project is the Design District Streetscape. If any of you were here for the Santa Monica Boulevard reconstruction, you know those major street reconstruction projects are a huge impact on the city. And so that will be impacting most of our community. And again, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that project, as well as some of the upcoming projects like the Plummer Park and rehabbing some of the Plummer Park. And I believe that provides kind of the general overview. We will now move into talking with some of the department heads about some of the individual projects and work plans in their departments. And we will start with Rick Abramson, who will talk about the Community Services Department. And he's actually standing in for Oscar Delgado, our Assistant City Manager, who it's his birthday today. So he's taking the day off. He deserves it. So Rick.
Thank you, David. Happy to step in for Oscar. So Community Services as a department focuses on enhancing the physical aspects of the built environment and city parks, and also on delivering commitments to improve the quality of life citywide. This department includes 3 divisions: innovation, property development and housing, and the urban design and architecture studio. And as a group, these divisions seek to maintain the city's unique urban balance, and we emphasize residential neighborhood livability, commercial and economic vitality, and the sustainable design of civic facilities, amenities, parks, and green spaces. So let's start with our innovation division. Anticipating the future, our innovation manager, Francisco Contreras, and his team have been working on a new partnering venture called the WeHo Plus Tesla Supercharger Station, which will be the city's first electric vehicle fast charging station. These initial stations are expected to be launching in December. It's a pioneering effort that will include 8 Tesla fixtures and 4 universal fixtures, with the intention to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support the city's ongoing sustainability and climate action efforts. Francisco will be in breakout room 3 to fill you in on this and more innovation projects within his division. Moving to the property development division, with respect to housing production, our property and housing development team is working on 2 new projects that are in the early stages that will be dedicated to 100% affordable housing. A 50-unit project on Martell is proposed just south of Plummer Park, while a second 48-unit project is in the works at Detroit and Lexington. Together, we're looking at close to 100% affordable housing units being added to the city. Now, as a temporary measure for the interim, the Detroit and Lexington site is being prepared by our Facilities and Recreation Services Department as a community garden for the short term until the property is construction ready. So for those interested in the production of more affordable housing, please join Brian League, our property development manager. He'll be in breakout room 2. And finally, on the urban design and architecture design side, much will be happening at Plummer Park in the next year, as David was just mentioning. 3 efforts are already underway or in the works. First, staff is working to create a temporary dog play area for council consideration. So look for that to be coming very soon. Second, within the next month, we will be collaborating with a consultant team to assess potential upgrades to Fiesta Hall and Great Hall Long Hall. And finally, as a longer term master plan revisioning effort for the entire park, we'll be taking a fresh look at that revisioning commencing in 2022. And for this longer term visioning, we're anticipating forming a community-based steering committee or advisory group in the first part of next year. So much to plan for at the park going forward. And finally, in light of the ongoing growth and development in the community, we understand now more than ever that balancing the built-in and natural environments will be essential. And towards that end, our West Hollywood staff has been working with academic researchers and leading design professionals to recommend upgrades, policies, and programs, as well as new potential development standards to ensure that the city's tree canopy and associated ecosystem are not an afterthought and actually become an essential component to our continued growth. So these standards that we're developing are scheduled to be discussed at the November 18th Planning Commission meeting next month, with the Commission's recommendations then being brought to the City Council early in 2022. So we encourage you to attend the Commission meeting and offer your comments. So for those of you that are curious about this effort or other projects underway in the Urban Design and Architecture Studio, I will be joining Brian League in breakout room 2. Now I'd like to introduce John Kehoe, our Director of Planning and Development Services, who will tell you about some of their exciting work underway. John?
Thank you, Rick. My name is John Kehoe. I'm the Director of Planning and Development Services. This department is all about the built environment. We deal with new construction, planning for the future, and also looking back to the past and preserving the best of the past. My department includes 3 divisions. There's long-range planning, and Robin Eason is the manager of that division. Kernan Historic Preservation Planning, Jennifer Alkire is the manager of that division, and Building and Safety. And Ben Galan is the building official and in charge of that division. Tonight, I'm going to talk briefly about one work item for each division. So in the building division, Ben's staff is working on a seismic retrofit program. The city understood that we need to become more resilient and improve and strengthen our buildings so that there will be less damage when the next earthquake hits, and also try to make it to where we can recover more quickly after an earthquake. So what the City Council did is they adopted an ordinance back in 2017 requiring the retrofitting of 2 types of buildings. One type of building is frequently called a dingbat, and those are more technically called soft, weak, or open face buildings. And those are buildings that are usually apartments, 1 or 2 stories, and you see the open face of tuck under parking. So those are those soft, weak, open face buildings. The other is non-ductile concrete and pre-Northridge steel moment frame buildings. And those are typically larger commercial buildings. We identified a large number of those buildings, 738 of those dingbat buildings and 83 of those other more commercial buildings. And we have a plan in which every one of those property owners need to submit documents to the city for review. And if necessary, they'll need to renovate those buildings through a seismic retrofit project. To date, approximately 55% of all the buildings that are dingbat buildings, and that's 406 properties, have turned in their building evaluations to our Building and Safety Division for review. And 150 of those buildings have completed their retrofits. And so I think that's really great, considering a lot of those came in during the pandemic. Due to the pandemic, we postponed the start of the retrofit for the other buildings, but hopefully we'll start that soon. Also, in order to help our community, building staff applied for and received a grant from FEMA as part of their hazard mitigation grant program in the amount of $10 million. And with that money, the city will develop a grant program to help property owners retrofit their buildings. And hopefully that program will start in the winter, this winter. Next is our current and historic preservation plan. The current planning division has recently started a citywide multifamily historic resource survey. Jennifer's staff is working with GPA consultants to update the citywide historic resource survey for all properties within our R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts. These professionals will do archive research and actually walk and drive through the community and look at every building in the residential zones. The goal is to identify buildings that appear to be eligible for designation as a local cultural resource, state cultural resource, or a national cultural resource. The purpose of this exercise is to ensure that we preserve what's best about West Hollywood in our unique built environment, and also to increase the efficiency of housing production by streamlining the CEQA process for properties that are not eligible for designation. This survey was partially delayed during the pandemic, but we're back on track, and this should be concluded hopefully by the end of 2022. And the public will be able to review these documents at Historic Preservation Commission meetings, so keep in touch with that. Finally, I would like to talk about our long-range planning division. One of the key projects they're working on is our housing element. Every city has a general plan, and part of that general plan is a housing element. And it's a really critical element because it talks about how we provide housing for our community members. The state requires us to update it every 8 years, and so we're currently in that process right now. We've gone through the process over the last multiple months. We've gone to lots of commissions and boards and held public meetings on this. One of the key things that we've had to look at was how do we accommodate additional housing growth? We've been assigned approximately 3,900 dwelling units that we need to accommodate in the city. They don't actually need to be built because the city can't build housing, but we need to make sure that we can accommodate that. And that number of units includes very low income units, low income units, moderate, above moderate, and just regular market rate units. And so that is a lot of units. Just for reference for folks, over the last 8 years, we constructed approximately 2,200 units. So this 3,900 is a substantial increase in what we would be seeing constructed. As I mentioned, we've gone through an extensive engagement process where we've talked to the community, and we've heard that we want the housing element to address how we preserve rent stabilized housing, how we manage aging housing stock, how do we come up with new housing types to meet different ways of living, how do we address homelessness. If we're going to increase density, where should we increase it? Should it be along transit corridors? And as Rick indicated, we also need to talk about how our new development is built, and especially how our new housing can address climate change and sustainability. And finally, we need to address how we can streamline our review process to make sure housing can get built. This housing element is now being reviewed by the state in a draft form. They'll be sending it back to us hopefully later this fall, and we'll be taking that back to our planning commission and to our city council for final review and approval. And so with that, I'd like to say if anyone is interested in hearing more about these items or other things that the planning and development department is working on, we'll be in breakout room number 2. Now I'd like to turn this over to Jackie Roku.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jackie Rocco, and I'm the Director of Public Works. I'm excited to be here this evening with all of you. The Public Works Department is comprised of 3 divisions, and that is code compliance, engineering, and parking services. We are focused on mobility and infrastructure in the public right-of-way, as well as neighborhood livability concerns that are important to all of you present this evening. I am happy to report on these 4 programs that our department is working on, starting with the Design District Streetscape and Utility Undergrounding Project. That, as David mentioned, it's a major infrastructure project. This project will implement the recommendations adopted by the West Hollywood Design District Streetscape Master Plan. And this is an exciting project that is the project boundaries are Melrose between Doheny and Croft to the east, as well as Beverly, again, from Doheny to the boundaries on the east side, and Robertson between Santa Monica and Beverly, as well as Lapeer and Almont between Santa Monica and Melrose. Key features of this exciting project include pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements, new pavement and sidewalks, distinctive trees and landscape, as well as upgraded street furniture and street lights, along with smart city infrastructure installation that will include on-street electric vehicle charging stations and the utility undergrounding of many of the utility poles along Melrose and Beverly and Robertson Boulevard south of Melrose as well to the Beverly limit. And the other feature of the program will be 2 gathering spaces that will include integrated public art, and those will be on Melrose at Norwich and also on Beverly. The first phase of this program will start later this year with the undergrounding of utility poles on Melrose between San Vicente and Doheny, with the next phase starting in March of 2022, when we will be working on Melrose between San Vicente and Croft. And this project is expected to be completed by 2025, since it has a lot of different phases and elements to it. But we're excited about it, as we know it's going to be very transformative to this very important commercial area of our city. Also from the engineering division, we have the Fountain Avenue safety improvements. As you know, to improve safety on Fountain Avenue for pedestrian and motorists, we have modified the traffic signals so that they automatically turn red at preset intervals and display the pedestrian walk phase prior to the green light for vehicles. We are now in the process of designing and installing an island at the Fountain Curzon intersection to prevent left turns, and we will be adding left turn arrows to the traffic signal at the Fountain and Gardner intersections, along with an installation of a new traffic signal at Fountain and Poinsettia. And lastly, we will be installing devices that will monitor travel speed and display the speed to drivers. All of these projects are intended to improve the overall safety of this important corridor in our city. From our code compliance division, we have the vacant property program, which was implemented late in 2020 and continues as an important program in our city. New public nuisance standards addressing property maintenance and vacant property issues went into effect, which also established a new registration program for vacant properties. This newly implemented program consists of completing a series of steps that code compliance staff must complete to monitor and respond to community concerns. This has been really important to address the state and conditions of vacant properties in the city. And it includes follow-up inspections that are performed by code compliance staff while the property remains vacant, to ensure that progress has been made and that violations are corrected. One important aspect of this program is the vacant property task force that was created and meets once a month, and it's comprised of a multidisciplinary group of representatives from code compliance, the West Hollywood Sheriff Station, Public Safety, the Los Angeles County Fire Department, Legal Services, Planning, Building and Safety, Engineering, Parking, Strategic Initiatives, Rent Stabilization, and Social Services. So as you can see, it's a really vibrant group of individuals that all can have input into the status of the program, so that we need to discuss the current state of these vacant properties in the program and exchange information on specific properties and action items that may be needed. And lastly, from our parking services division, we are happy to report that we will be expanding the virtual parking permits program to add residential and guest permits. On September of last year, when we were mainly in this virtual environment, the Parking Services Division implemented the virtual visitor permits, which allow residents to obtain permits using a portal that they can access from a mobile device or a computer to register the plate or plates of vehicles that need a permit. We started with the visitor permits so that people could get acclimated to the way that the program works, and the electronic record then becomes the permit itself, and the information is communicated to parking enforcement officers so that a vehicle with valid permit will not get cited. This process really improves overall customer service by allowing residents to obtain permits from the convenience of their home rather than requiring in-person visits to City Hall or the Kings Road parking structure, where residents have usually gone to obtain these visitor permits. And I'm happy to report, I mean, we started with only 77 of these permits issued last year in September, and September of this year, we issued 1,836. So residents have been using them, getting more familiarized with the service. And now the next step in the program will be to add the guest permits and residential permits, making it possible for all the residential permits to be obtained electronically and eliminating permit hang tags or those permits that you affix on the windshield that I know some of you really dislike. But this is an exciting program that is really going to help residents obtain their permits just from the comfort of their home. So these are the main projects that we're working on in Public Works, but I invite you to join breakout room number 3 if you have further questions or wish to discuss further, where we will have additional staff to answer any questions you may have. And now with that, I'm happy to introduce Steve Campbell, who is our Director of Facilities and Recreation Services.
Yes, Steve. Hi, thank you, Jackie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Campbell. I'm the Director of Facilities and Recreation Services. The department generally maintains all of our city assets, including parks and landscape, city buildings, other infrastructure such as our streets and sidewalks, and completes major capital projects such as West Hollywood Park and the forthcoming AIDS Memorial that we're planning on building, as well as the Plummer Park project. In addition, we also provide a broad range of recreational services to our community and our parks and facilities. As I like to say, facilities provides a kingdom, and recreation provides a magic. As we move forward this year, the department continues to be deeply focused on the delivery of the West Hollywood Park project. As you may recall, in January of 2017, the construction began on the project to build the final improvements as envisioned by the community and documented in the 2004 West Hollywood Park Master Plan. The project includes our aquatic and recreation center with community meeting spaces, 2 off-leash dog parks, expanded green spaces with landscaping, picnic areas, public art, updated children's playgrounds, and of course the AIDS Monument. This project represents the largest capital project ever undertaken by the city and carries with it high expectations of an engaged community. The new 75,000 square foot West Hollywood Park Aquatic and Recreation Center, or the ARC as we term it, and the associated West Hollywood Park space will provide the community with additional green space and amenities for premier recreational, fitness, community, and social service activities and programming. The project is finally nearing its completion, and as City Manager Wilson mentioned, we anticipate a phased opening of the ARC to commence before the end of this year. Staff will begin operating in a limited or soft phase that will include some limited use of the pools, gymnasium, and likely some limited recreational programming. Of course, any opening phase will need to be compliant with COVID restrictions in place at the time and done in accordance with all county health orders. Pending those restrictions, we would anticipate a full opening by mid-2022. The city's Recreation Services Division pivoted, as we all did, due to the pandemic, and has continued to provide recreation opportunities via a virtual platform, just like we're Zooming here tonight, to the entire community. In addition, it's been busy ramping up to deliver new opportunities in ARC, including new league play options for adults and youth in the new gymnasium, various sports clinics to help support those new leagues, the junior lifeguard program that will offer on-site training alongside our city staff of seasoned professional lifeguards, new indoor and outdoor fitness classes in the awesome newly redefined spaces of the park. Another item in the queue from Recreation Services is a fee waiver and scholarship process so that all of our community members are able to easily access the services and activities that will be provided. The city's Facilities and Field Services Division has also been here throughout the pandemic, and as you can imagine, has also been developing new work processes to assimilate the new building and park space into its already busy work plan. A few additional projects the team is working on is the current updates of the lower property and part house, including new painting, window seals, repair of glass, and replacement of the concrete drive. This work is all being done in accordance with historic guidelines as required for the properties. The division is also scheduled to complete resurfacing of the city's basketball and tennis courts, including new striping scheme that will incorporate pickleball lines onto several tennis courts. Programming will be coordinated through the Recreation Services Division and with our new tennis provider Tenacity at the courts. Restriping of Fountain Avenue is also in the final planning stages and should commence as soon as weather permits. If you have specific questions related to any of these items or other items that the department may be working on, please join Helen Collins, our Facilities and Field Services Manager, Stephanie Martinez, our Recreation Services Manager, and myself in breakout room 3. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce you now to Christoph Schroeder, who will be discussing the Human Services and Stabilization Department.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christoph Schroeder. I oversee the Department of Human Services and Rent Stabilization. We're charged with overseeing, administering, and delivering critical community services and programming to support a healthy and resilient community and ensure a high quality of residential life. The department consists of 3 divisions: social services, rent stabilization, and strategic initiatives. This evening, I'll highlight the 4 areas on your screen as examples of the department's ongoing work plan, and we're happy to discuss these and other issues during the breakout sessions at the conclusion of the overall presentation. The Social Services Division has entered the 3rd year of this 3-year contract cycle with local nonprofit agencies to provide social services to members of the West Hollywood community. The contracts for the 2021-2022 year provide services intended to allow people to remain independent in their own homes, to provide essentials such as food and shelter, to address public health concerns such as COVID-19, HIV/AIDS, untreated mental health, substance abuse, and other critical issues, with the intention of improving quality of life and encouraging community stability. The Rent Stabilization Division is committed to strengthening rent stabilization ordinance compliance through comprehensive tenant harassment and habitability programs, communicating ordinance protections to more tenants through enhanced noticing requirements, and fulfilling the council's directive to expand residential rental registration to include non-rent stabilized properties. The Strategic Initiatives Division is home to the city's homeless initiative, Aging in Place, Aging in Community work, and focused efforts to reduce poverty. The city is exploring the development of a behavioral health crisis response team, which would provide first responder type service for mental health crises for both housed and unhoused community members in West Hollywood. Staff continues to gather information and study best practices from other similar programs, relevant city commissions and advisory bodies, the LA County Department of Mental Health, and other city partners. A follow-up item on this will go before the City Council on November 15th. The city is working toward the launch also of a guaranteed income micro-pilot program to provide a guaranteed income to LGBTQI older adults in West Hollywood. The program is being developed in partnership with the Mayors for Guaranteed Income and the Center for Guaranteed Income Research. The program will provide $1,000 a month for 18 months to 25 residents. More information will be available regarding the application process in late December or early January. City funds will not be used for the fund disbursement. Staff are pursuing other government and philanthropic funding for those costs. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the city's public safety director, Kristen Cook.
Go, Kristen, get it, girl.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kristen Cook, the city's public safety director. The public safety department also includes event services, and Cleo Smith is our event services manager. Tonight, I will give a brief update on efforts to promote community safety, plans to update the city's emergency plans, and neighborhood watch. Starting with community safety, West Hollywood has a long history of utilizing creative solutions and funding robust social services to support the safety of our residents. While the number of patrol deputies has slightly decreased over the last 20 years, there have been increases in civilian security teams such as Block by Block, co-compliance staffing, and contracted social service agencies in lieu of adding more sworn resources. Residents and businesses continue to express concerns with impacts from homelessness, so the city continues to use a partnership of public safety, co-compliance, and various social services to address these concerns. Staff from multiple departments have been working with the Public Safety Commission, and I'd like to thank my commissioners, to provide input on current and future programs and policies to promote justice and equity in policing. Recent efforts include the implementation of body-worn cameras, a partnership with the Center for Policing Equity, and the continued utilization of mental evaluation teams. All West Hollywood Patrol personnel currently have body-worn cameras, and the program has been fully functional since October of 2020. This new program has been running smoothly, and it promotes deputy accountability. In addition, the cameras have also assisted with resolving complaints, and it provides information for deputy evaluation, training, and areas of improvement needed. The city and West Hollywood Sheriff Station have partnered with the Center for Policing Equity, or CPE, to conduct a data study. The primary areas of study include use of force, vehicle stops, and pedestrian stops, in order to then make recommendations on how to improve equity and service to our community. Currently, sheriff's personnel are working with the CPE on the transfer of data, and CPE representatives gave a brief update at the September Public Safety Commission meeting. Also in September, CPE launched their Justice Navigator, an interactive digital platform that provides analyses, policy insights, and other tools to monitor and redesign public safety. I encourage you to view CPE's Justice Navigator at policingequity.org. Turning to our mental evaluation team, or MET. MET includes a specialized deputy and a mental health clinician who is a civilian who serves the city. And while the county has multiple MET teams, one MET team is assigned specifically to the West Hollywood station and is funded by the city. MET successfully diverts the vast majority of individuals they assist away from the criminal justice system and into care. Locally in West Hollywood, the MET team has forged effective partnerships with the city's contracted social service providers and the homeless navigators at Cedars-Sinai to strengthen the safety net for those community members who are experiencing mental health challenges, homelessness, or who are at risk for homelessness. The MET unit provides our community members with mental health support, crisis intervention, and appropriate psychiatric placement when needed. The local availability and rapid response of the WeHo MET team has led to decreased response times. It has prevented the use of force and potential injuries. And most importantly, it provides the appropriate mental health care and treatment for our community members. Another important partnership is between the Sheriff Station and the Tarzana Treatment Center, which provides opportunities for those charged with issues related to substance use to access substance abuse treatment and recovery programs at Tarzana as a pathway for diversion from the criminal justice system. Finally, the Sheriff's Community Impact Team has forged relationships with our community members experiencing homelessness, and they continue to offer resources and help and stay connected to these community members. Moving on to the update of the city's emergency plan and hazard mitigation plan. City staff are currently working on analyzing and updating the city's emergency plan, including incorporating lessons learned from the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Public safety commissioners will begin their discussion and the review of the emergency plan in December, and we encourage you to join us for that meeting on December 13th. In addition, next calendar year will include a review and update, if necessary, of the city's hazard mitigation plan. Finally, as we emerge from the worst of the pandemic, staff will be working on reinvigorating Neighborhood Watch. This will include supporting existing groups and extending invitations to community members to form new groups as well. In partnership with the mayor, staff will be connecting with businesses in the West Hollywood Chamber to form business watches for interested business partners. I invite you to join us in the breakout room to answer any public safety related questions. Lieutenant Bill Mulder of the West Hollywood Sheriff Station will also be available. And with that, I'd like to introduce Lisa Belsanti, our Director of Communications.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm Lisa Marie Belsanti, and I am the Director of Communications for the City of West Hollywood. And what does that mean? What is communications? We are comprised of the city's arts, media marketing, and digital media divisions, which includes WehoTV, which is what you see broadcast on your streaming channels and on our local Spectrum cable channels, the Public Information Office, the Film Office, and Public Access Free Speech TV. With me tonight is the Communications Department's three amazing manager, our Arts Manager, Rebecca Iman, our Digital Media Manager, Brett White, and our Communications Manager, Joshua Scher. We're going to be in breakout room 1. I feel like this is a reality show. Come to breakout room 1 so we can win the inaugural community state of the city. You can ask us questions and learn more about what we do. I feel like our department should come last because what we do for the most part is promote all of the city's special programs and initiatives and events. And a lot of what we did during the 19 plus months of this pandemic is let the community know that your services were still there, that we were remote, but we were not distant, and where to find all the resources and information to keep you and your family and your friends safe through the pandemic. And we did a lot of outreach over the past 19 plus months and working with our community partners at LA County Department of Health. And but we're looking forward to a future that is less COVID related and more community moving forward together related. So the Communications Department, we provide all the media relations and we support those this type of in-house consultation to the 22 plus divisions within the organization that we promote their materials. We also provide support to the city's departments and the city council on community engagement, public information, marketing, and public awareness campaigns. We also have the privilege to oversee the city's arts and cultural affairs programs. And through the arts division, we cultivate a wide array of artists, and arts programming and cultural events. Our annual One City, One Pride event that we brought remotely for the last couple of years. Now we're going to bring it live and in person if COVID is permitting. And all of our arts programs and experience attempt to engage and enrich the lives of residents and visitors and support the community's creative economy. With our marketing campaign and public relations strategy, we bring the city's brand to the community and beyond. Our brand is, unlike most small cities, we have a very cosmopolitan community. We're very active, engaged, we're smart, and we're media savvy. So we try to bring a wide array of communications channels that meet people where they're at. A lot of our largest demographic in the city are a little younger than me. We are kind of full of like Generation Zs and millennials who don't like to be plugged in, but they want to be aware and involved. And that's where a lot of our digital media and cutting edge programming that we see pushed throughout our social media channels and digital channels come in. We also have a lot coming up in the next fiscal year to bring even more community engagement and provide more transparency. We're going to launch an online newsletter at wehonews.com, and that will be complemented with a lot of the video content that you've seen, including some podcasts. We're strengthening our media relations on an ongoing basis. Not only are we pushing out an incredible amount of information from our public information officer's desk, we are monitoring media relations and making sure that what we see and hear in the news is accurate and factual. And we have a great team of folks that are plugged in 24/7, trying to make sure that what's reported on about West Hollywood actually happens in West Hollywood. We publish as much information as possible on the city's website and through other outlets, and we provide information in other languages for our Russian-speaking community and community members who speak and read in Spanish. We have Spanish language translation available. And we are looking forward to a program through the arts division that is going to be a comprehensive catalog of all of our public art programs with interviews from the artists to showcase the amazing cultural programming and arts programming that we have here in the city. We also permit all filming in the city through our film office, through our film coordinator, Eddie Robinson. And our folks over at WehoTV do a lot of the creation of the content that you see on social, but they are the folks who are living history and archives of all of the city's public meetings and live events. And we have a great, great team. Over half of us live, work, and play here in West Hollywood. There's hundreds of years of experience in municipal government amongst us. And like I said, we're going to be in breakout room 1. Come talk to us so we can explain fully what we do in comms and how we promote your city and your community. And leave it to me to forget to introduce my coworker, my colleague, Lorena Quijano, who is our Director of Finance and Technology Services. Remember, I didn't fully forget you come budget time, Lorena.
No problem, Lisa. Thank you very much. That was really nice that you said about communications. Thank you, everybody. As Lisa mentioned, I am Lorena Quijano, the Director of Finance and Technology Services. Our department includes 3 divisions: accounting, revenues, and information technology. I will be highlighting 3 important areas tonight. The first relates to financial reporting. Annually, the city undergoes a number of external audits that require us to be in compliance with newly issued accounting regulations. The city follows generally accepted accounting principles known as GAAP, which some of you might be familiar with. And we also follow governmental accounting standards, which is known as GAS, which is basically followed by governmental agencies. And we also provide annual disclosures that allow us for increased transparency of the city's transactions. The hard work of our team has allowed the city to continually achieve a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting, which is awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association. The annual financial report, if you're very interested in learning more about the city's finances, is available on the City of West Hollywood's website. It's very exciting, trust me, not just because I'm the finance director. As it relates to staying in compliance, this year the accounting division will be implementing new regulations relating to lease transactions, which will change how we account for leases. And more importantly, it will provide additional information for the readers of our financial report. Our second goal relates to online payments. Due to the COVID-19 closures, our revenue division began to review and increase our payment options to facilitate how customers could make payments online without having to come into City Hall and to keep everybody safe. Within a couple of weeks of closing City Hall, we added the ability to pay 13 new services that range from planning, building and safety permits, business license, to city clerk fees, and many more. By July 2020, we further increased the number of services you could pay online from 13 to 21 in order to accommodate additional requests that we received from the public. Since April 2020 to October 15, we received about 9,500 online payments totaling close to 13 million. Those are 9,500 online payments that are folks that probably had to come into City Hall, but we were able to keep them safe at home. Because processing transactions with minimum delays is so important, our next phase focuses on providing our customers with a streamlined digital checkout experience and the ability to choose their preferred payment options, such as e-check, ACH, debit card, credit card, along with digital wallet options such as PayPal and Apple Pay, which most of you probably already use. Our online payment goals are in line with our bigger goal, in which our technology division is working on creating a 24/7 digital City Hall to better serve the community and anyone doing business with the city, while we maintain a safe and effective hybrid workplace. This year, as we move toward into the new normal, we have begun implementing online appointment scheduling, virtual appointments with city staff, as well as beginning to modernize the city's permitting and financial system. And we are moving our systems to the cloud so that we can access information from wherever we are and serve our customers with minimal downtime in case of emergencies. As you know, the IT department, our information technology department, allowed us to work since the pandemic at work and in the office seamlessly. Thank you for your time. Please join Carlos, Annie, and Eugene, my fellow team members, in breakout room 5 if you have any questions about our activities and work plans. Next, I will introduce Yvonne Corker, our Director of Administrative Services. Yvonne.
Thank you, Lorena. Good evening, everyone. I'm Yvonne Corker, the Administrative Services Director, and my department is comprised of the Administrative Services Division, City Clerks Division, and the Human Resources Division. The department is responsible for providing broad-based organizational support and guidance. Our overall focus is to enhance employee morale, leadership development, labor relations, communications, support for council, advisory boards and commissions, and customer service, which simply means we help make things happen. So how does the work that we do as an internal service department translate to residents and visitors beyond the walls of city facilities? Well, through availability, communication, and transparency. Good internal processes translate to great external results. The Administrative Services Division is where I get to assist the City Manager's Department with planning and implementing internal organizational programs and special projects that promote creativity, innovation, and excellence in customer service. My goal for the coming year is to look at how employees work in our new normal. How can we make ourselves better available to our residents? How can we work in city facilities with all the protocols and mandates that we have in place and still ensure that we're able to provide a high level of service for our residents and visitors, whether you're utilizing city services online or in person? We have an internal group here at City Hall that is comprised of employees that represent all 3 bargaining units, directors, managers, frontline staff, And it was created to ensure that all points of view are being heard when the city is looking at implementing something throughout the organization. So I will continue to work with this group to look at how we foster teamwork and customer service in this hybrid environment through trainings and leadership development. Our Human Resources Division, which is led by Susan Schumacher, our Human Resources Manager, provides services, guidance, and support to city employees, as well as departments, in order to recruit, develop, and retain a diverse, highly skilled, and professional workforce. The Human Resources Division partnered with the city's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, our DEI committee, to find ways that we can incorporate these values into work of the division. It's our job to foster communication through this DEI lens to our employees, to applicants who want to join the WeHo workforce, and those organizations and agencies we work with to help us find the right candidates. So the HR Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program projects include conducting trainings for hiring authorities to understand what hiring prejudices are and how they operate, implementing a blind application process to avoid demographic characteristics that play into the application review, to utilize current recruitment software programs that blinds that information in that application to ensure a level playing field for applicants, to have mandatory DEI trainings for our employees and upper management, to update the Human Resources webpage to include information on our core values, the culture, our services, and to spotlight current talent within the organization, to train hiring authorities and our oral board raters, which are those that interview our applicants, to recognize and address unconscious bias during the interview process, and to interview with compassion and empathy, especially during these challenging times, and to explore ways to promote the hiring of employees who have disabilities. Our city's clerks division is led by Melissa Crowder, our city clerk. And the clerks division is a service division within the city, which the city council, commissioners, advisory board members, task force members, all city departments, and the general public rely on for information regarding the operations and legislative history of the city. The clerks division is the liaison between the public and the city. The main projects Melissa and her team will be working on are geared towards transparency for the public. So one of the projects is GovQA, which is an electronic public records request program that will allow the public to request records and receive them electronically. It also reduces the amount of requests by allowing requesters to view a library of sorts of frequently asked public records. It also automates workflows and processes and notifications, and it just improves the overall citizens' experience when requesting records from our city. The other project is the Granicus e-comment feature. This feature is connected to our current Granicus software that we use for city council meetings. It allows for a much more efficient and streamlined way for the public to submit public comments, which we get a lot of. Residents and interested individuals can click on a meeting title and in the online agenda, and you're able to comment directly on that item. You can also state your position on the item, support, neutral, or opposed. You can add attachments to your comments, and you can also register to speak at the meeting. So as I stated before, good internal processes translate to great external results. The overall goal of my department is to always be available, effectively communicate, and remain transparent in all that we do. So my staff and I will be in breakout room number 5. Come on and visit us. And now I will turn it back over to Paolo Kesperit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yvonne, and thank you to all the department directors that made a presentation here today. It's my pleasure to go ahead and start the general Q&A session. So this session is basically devoted to general questions. So if you have any of those questions, please feel free to type those in the chat. You can also use the raise hand feature that is on Zoom, and we could go ahead and call you and ask your question live. We do have a couple of questions here in the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and start with those ones first, and then we'll go over to the raised hands that we have in the Zoom. I just want to let everyone know after this, we're going to end the live stream that's on YouTube, then head into breakout rooms with the respective departments and divisions, and you'll see that list here shortly. But first, I wanted to, I think this question is great for Francisco, who's our innovations manager, and it's in regards to the Tesla partnership. So it is, the question is, for the Tesla partnership, are we forecasting revenue once the project is complete?
Yes, we are forecasting some revenue with regards to sort of the vehicle charging, basically. We are planning to break even at the 5-year milestone. And that's really depending on the amount of credits we can get from the California Air Resources Board. So we're looking at breaking even with our investment probably within 5 years. And then after that, getting some revenue share from the electric utilization at the facilities itself. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you so much, Francisco. This next question here, I think would be most appropriate for Kobe Wagman, who's in our parking division. This question says, how often will license plate records be scrubbed?
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Paulo. Great question. License plate records are scrubbed every year, and the images that are captured by our ALPR parking enforcement units are scrubbed every 30 days.
Great. Thank you so much for that information. This next question, I think, would be most appropriate for Janet Jimenez, who works in the city manager's office. This is a question in regards to, can someone clarify if showing proof of vaccination status is required to enter city buildings, attend city council or boards and commission meetings?
Thank you, Paulo. So proof of vaccination is required to enter city facilities. However, there are exemptions to that if members of the public are attending a public Brown Act meeting. Facial coverings, face masks, capacity limits, and temperature checks and social distancing will still apply in those instances.
Thank you so much, Janet. This next question that we have here in the chat, I think would be probably most appropriate for Jennifer Alkire and or John Kehoe. And it's regard to current and historic planning. So could the city designate both Great Hall and Long Hall and Fiesta Hall? It has been left up to citizens to submit applications for designations. And they're wondering, could Chatal and or the Historic Preservation Commission submit the designation applications for city-owned buildings that warrant historic preservation?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, it's already considered historic. It's already nominated or designated at a national level, at least. And so, yes, the city could initiate nomination of those buildings and process that through. But as of right now, they are treated the same way that they would be if they were designated or not at a city level. Hope that makes sense.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. So I think this next comment on here just has to do in regards to the scooters and just kind of ensuring that there is a more kind of outreach campaign. Maybe if I believe Robin Easton is on the line here, just to kind of briefly talk about a little bit about the scooter and the pilot program that's currently happening and some of the ways that we're engaging the community.
Yeah, thanks, Paulo, and Kobe, please feel free to weigh in as well. We've been scheduling a number of pop-ups at the farmers markets with the providers to kind of talk about safety and the use of devices and how to use them throughout the city. We also are in the process of installing signage at the various existing designated areas for scooters. And as we continue to expand the program, we'll have signage throughout the city that promotes safety and proper ridership. Kobe, is there anything else that you would add to that?
Yeah, we're also working on establishing regular demo or outreach events with the different providers. But the idea is to alternate between the west and east side on monthly intervals, as well as our field team is about to begin doing safety pop-ups where they're going to park around the city, and they will do some informational campaigns and hand out helmets to riders that are interested or may look like they need one. And we continue, like Robin said, to expand our parking stations that are accommodated by parking signs, as well as we've just installed signage at the different advertising panels throughout the city that were associated with the former WeHo Pedals program. So there's a number of outreach, print, and pop-up type of events that the pilot program is doing or is about to embark on.
Great. Thank you so much, both Robin and Kobe, for your comments on that question. This next question is probably best for Steve Campbell. This is in regards to EV plugins. They want to know how many plugins for EVs are in the new parking structure for West Hollywood Park.
Yeah, there are actually no plugins for EVs in the new structure. We have to remember that when the building was designed was like in 2013, 14, 15, and construction started in late 2016, 2017. So that's not something that was, vitally on our radar at that point as far as adding. However, it's fairly easy to add that. We have plans to come in and do a few things after we accept the building, and that happens to be one of them.
Great, thank you so much, Steve. And then I'm going to go over here to the raised hands. Wes, I see that your hand here is raised. I know we asked your question live here, but just wanted to see if that answered your first question. And then I know you have some more specific questions, which we can obviously answer in breakout number 1, where Janet will be to help you with those questions.
Yeah, Janet, she confirmed that at Brown Act meetings, that means that boards and commissions, like I was asking, they're not going to ask for proof of vaccine status. And I brought that up because a lot of people have actually been coming to me and telling me that they've been concerned about that, like scared about it. And I didn't really know what to tell them, even though I had talked to the city manager about the mandates and the requirements kind of at length. And I appreciate that time that the city's given me, but there's just a lot of confusion in the community. And so that's why I just wanted to bring that, take this time to speak. Thank you all for answering my questions.
Thank you so much, Wes. And as I said before, Janet will be in breakout room number 1 to speak to her about any of your other concerns as well. And I don't see any other questions in the chat or anyone else's hand that is raised. So with that, I think we're good to close off the general Q&A. As we said before, we're going to start to go into breakout rooms with the respective departments and divisions, but I'm going to invite David to come back up and explain a little bit more about that.